There was a moment, brief, almost too short to notice, when the crowd forgot to breathe. It came just after the clang. A weapon had hit the floor. Not flung. Not knocked loose. Dropped. Deliberate. Defiant. Disarming only in the literal sense. Because no one in the arena thought the human had a chance without it. And that's exactly why they cheered. The place was called Crucible Expanse, a name etched into every language of the known galaxies. It wasn't just a combat arena, it was the combat arena. A place where blood sealed treaties and pain settled ancient grudges. Gladiators from every corner of the Milky Way had fought here, not for coin or honor but for the right to be remembered. On this day, a dozen species sat shoulder to shoulder in the viewing towers. They gathered not just for sport, but to witness a humiliation. A human girl, unarmored and alone, was to face the Dromek Triad. 3 apex predators battle-bonded since birth. Their muscles were dense with coiled fury, claws sharper than any forged blade, and their tactics honed over 300 combat deployments. One Dromek alone could slice through a hull if enraged. 3? That was just cruel. And Earth had sent her. The announcers didn't even try to hide their contempt. Representing Terra, Unit 4GX, designation, Hallie. They didn't call her warrior. Didn't say combatant. Didn't even give her a title. Just designation. Like she was a test drone. Her opponent? The Triad. No names. They didn't need them. The name alone made species shiver. There were children across 6 star systems named after the 3 beasts inside that ring. And yet, when Hallie stepped into the arena, she did not flinch. She was not large. Not imposing. No combat tattoos, no visible implants, no tribal armor or nanoblade prosthetics. Just black fatigues, a short haircut, bare hands, and a single standard-issue Terran blade. The crowd murmured, mocking or pitying, it was hard to tell. She walked in like she'd forgotten she was prey. The Triad circled her, muscles rippling under obsidian skin. One of them, a brute nearly 10 feet tall, lowered its head and bared tusks that could shear a steel beam. It spoke low and slow in galactic common. Run, little echo. Hallie didn't move. She didn't posture. She didn't even blink. Instead, she did something none of them could comprehend. She opened her hand and dropped the weapon. Clang. The arena echoed with the sharp, ringing sound. And the crowd, thousands upon thousands, cheered. Not because they respected her, but because they were about to watch a death. No one enters the Crucible unarmed unless they want to die dramatically. They thought Earth had sent a martyr. A message. They were half right. The Triad lunged. The first one, the largest, came straight down the middle. Hallie tilted her head slightly. Her left foot pivoted. Not a retreat, an alignment. And then, snap. The sound didn't register right away. The Dromek was in the air, his claws just about to dig into her. And then he wasn't. He was on the ground, twitching. Neck at the wrong angle. No one saw what she did. The second Triad was already mid-leap, spinning low to slice her legs from under her. She stepped into the attack, collapsing downward, but not falling. Slipping. Twisting. Elbow. Temple. Crack. 2 seconds. 2 down. The arena was no longer cheering. It was silent. The third Triad stopped moving. His legs held steady but his claws trembled. She stood slowly. Didn't rush. Her breath calm. No flourish. No gloating. She looked at the last Dromek. He was the smart one, they said. He was the strategist. He took 1 step back. She tilted her head the other way this time. And then, he ran. He didn't get far. 14 seconds after the clang of her weapon hitting the ground, the arena was empty, save for her. 3 warriors lay still. And 1 human girl stood alone, not even winded. She didn't bow. Didn't smile. She just walked out. As if nothing had happened. The footage would be studied for years. Forensic analysts failed to slow it down enough to catch her movements in detail. Physiologists argued about her muscle composition. Diplomatic envoys reviewed the footage not for technique, but for intent. And everywhere in the galaxy where combat was worshipped, one whispered question began to rise. If this is what a human does without a weapon, what happens when they use one? Earth issued no statement. Hallie did not reappear in public. But every invitation to a crucible bout involving humans? Cancelled. Not by Earth. By everyone else. That was just the beginning. Because what no one had yet asked was, why did she drop the weapon in the first place? And when that answer came, the galaxy would never sleep the same again. The galaxy would eventually learn the name Hallie, but it would never understand it. That name didn't appear on any public registry. No training logs, no combat sims, no awards. No civilian record. She was, by all official accounts, nobody. But when a single human dissolves a legendary combat unit in 14 seconds, with no weapon, no armor, and no mercy, the absence of history becomes the most terrifying thing of all. Because now everyone had one burning question. Where do you find someone like that? And worse, how many more are there? The Crucible Arena's governing council convened within hours. These were not emotional beings. They had ruled the galaxy's most sacred combat venue for 500 rotations. They had seen monsters rise and gods fall. But what happened in that arena shattered more than tradition. It shredded the illusion of dominance. The Dromek Triad was thought to be unbeatable. And Hallie hadn't even looked like she tried. Their first response was denial. It was luck, the Yaval speaker hissed. Implants, said the Zenth Highblood, thumbing through biometric scans. Impossible, muttered the K'airocrat general, whose own bloodline traced back to gladiatorial champions. But the footage said otherwise. No implants. No chemical boosters. No covert tech. Just pure biological intent. The analysis teams got desperate. They pulled body movement algorithms from ancient war libraries. They consulted Terran physiology databases. They even tried to reconstruct Hallie's facial micro-expressions during combat, looking for emotion, fear, or aggression. There was only calm. That frightened them most of all. Because predators snarl. Predators rage. But apex predators? They wait. On the fourth night after the incident, the Crucible Arena's director received a secure transmission. Not from Earth. From SCI-FI Black, Terran Advanced Combat, Division Black. A branch whispered about even in the darkest military forums. A division so secret it didn't even officially exist in Terran protocol, yet whose symbol, a single white circle on black, had appeared during warzone cleanups, pirate den eliminations and incident cover-ups. The message was brief. No salutation. No threat. Just 4 words. She chose to spare. That phrase detonated like a silent bomb. She chose to spare. Not she failed to kill. Not she was merciful. But chose, as in, had the option. The Dromek were 3 of the most lethal organisms the galaxy had ever fielded. And Hallie didn't just defeat them. She could have ended them permanently. But she didn't. She chose otherwise. What? No one could agree. Theories multiplied. The K'airocrat thought it was a psychological flex, a power move to instill fear. The Zenth saw it as calculated diplomacy, an intentional message to demonstrate Terran restraint. The Voru, with their spiritual philosophies, believed Hallie might be a religious symbol, a vessel for some Terran deity of war. None of them were right. The answer was buried deep within Earth's unlisted training protocols. SCI-FI Black had rules. Strict ones. And one rule stood above all. A weapon wielded in silence is louder than 1,000 declarations of war. Hallie had spoken not a single word. Because her presence was the message. Her fight was a negotiation. Not with her enemies, but with witnesses. Every species that had cheered when she dropped her blade? They were no longer watching a fight. They were watching a calibration. Earth had revealed a measurement. A minimum threshold. Not to provoke war, but to define peace. In the weeks that followed, a second ripple began to spread. Other stories. Hidden files leaked slowly. Whispered rumors of children training in windless caverns on Europa. Of adults surviving zero-gravity kill halls with nothing but tactile gloves and a heartbeat monitor. Of units trained not to kill efficiently, but to unmake entire command chains through precision and restraint. And more chilling still, none of them were the best. Because the best? Were never seen. One Crucible counselor, the only one brave enough, sent a direct request to Earth. We wish to observe a Terran training program. In peace. For understanding. The reply arrived 2 minutes later. You already have. It was signed. Hallie Class 3. Class 3? If Hallie wasn't top tier, if she was third tier, then the question changed again. Not how dangerous are humans, but what happens when Class 1 arrives? On the 17th cycle after the match, another request was sent. This one came not from a council, but from a planet. An independent colony world, frequently harassed by pirate raiders. No official military. No trade alliances. Just civilians. They had one request. Send us one human. No battalion. No aid fleet. Just one. The response? A boarding shuttle arrived within 72 hours. Its passenger? A girl with black fatigues. Short hair. Bare hands. And a standard Terran blade, which she never unsheathed. By the end of the week, The pirates had abandoned 5 nearby systems. They hadn't seen her fight. They hadn't heard her speak. They'd only heard what she'd done. And that was enough. Back in Crucible, they quietly archived the footage of the Dromek incident. A ceremonial plaque was placed above the old ring. No names. No accolades. Just an engraving. 14 seconds. Remember them. The plaque above the arena didn't gather dust. It gathered silence. Visitors didn't laugh when they saw it. They didn't scoff or speculate or boast. They simply stared. Even those who hadn't seen the footage, they felt it. As if the metal itself whispered the final screams of the Dromek triad. As if it carried the weight of a moment that bent history. The Crucible ring was officially retired. No more battles. No more bloodshed. The arena that once echoed with cheers now sat beneath unlit spires. Not as a grave but a warning beacon. And still, the question haunted the galaxy's brightest minds. If Halley was Class 3, what's Class 1? They tried to look deeper. Past the encryption layers and false dossiers. Past the decoys the Terran diplomatic corps distributed to confuse snoopers. But every thread pulled led to one dead end. A single access log. Dated decades prior. Flagged, do not engage. Not even Earth's allies knew what the class system truly meant. The Martian Syndicate only speculated that it wasn't about strength. It was about restraint. A Class 1 then wasn't the deadliest human alive. It was the one who'd survived the most reasons to kill, and didn't. In the Galactic Core, where warships patrolled merchant arteries like steel leviathans, panic took on new shape. Not the chaos of battle, but the cold order of re-strategizing. The Zenth Empire began recalibrating their combat algorithms. Their extinction fallback protocol now included one priority override. If contact is made with unarmed Terran operative, retreat. The Kyrkrat clans suspended recruitment of their elite bloodline soldiers until further notice. Even the Seralis matrons, who viewed all other species as evolutionary mistakes, suddenly halted biological experiments on captured Terran DNA. They feared what a response might look like. Earth said nothing. No broadcasts. No press releases. No threats. But that silence? That was Class 1 listening. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim colonies, something strange unfolded. Wherever a Terran was stationed, crime dropped. Not from enforcement but from uncertainty. Locals began to whisper a single question before committing even petty theft. What if that one's trained? In Sector 9, a transport ship accidentally veered too close to a human relief vessel. The vessel issued no warnings. Fired no shots. But within hours, the transport's entire crew submitted formal apologies. Unprovoked. The cultural ripple hit harder than the military one. A new holo-series swept galactic viewership, the 14 seconds. A dramatized reenactment of Halley's match, stylized for audience engagement. But what caught analysts off guard wasn't the action. It was the silence. Viewers sat motionless as Halley dropped her blade. The camera lingered on her stillness. And in that stillness, entire sectors sat breathless. For the first time in Crucible history, violence wasn't the climax. It was the silence before it. One night, aboard an orbital academy for elite warriors in training, a young Ashektan cadet, a race known for aggression, asked his instructor, "Master, what do we do if we ever face a Terran?" The instructor paused, then said very carefully, "If they speak, listen. If they move, run. If they drop their weapon, pray." The message was spreading. Not because humans said anything, but because the rest of the galaxy couldn't stop talking about them. And still, Earth remained quiet. No declarations. No recruitment videos. Just the occasional transfer. A new, exchange program cadet sent to a foreign academy. A silent civilian aide stationed on a volatile border world. One human here. One there. No one knew their class. They didn't need to. But behind that wall of quiet, something stirred. Class 1 was being briefed. Because something was changing. In the political web spun by galactic powers, subtle threads had begun to move. Alliances once impossible began to form. Hidden coalitions. Rogue science divisions. Black market militias were seeking technology, not for conquest, but defense against humans. They were preparing for war. But Earth wasn't mobilizing. Not in the traditional sense. No fleets launched. No superweapons deployed. Just humans. Walking quietly into stations, embassies, farms, libraries. And every one of them a question the galaxy didn't dare answer. What class are they? In the black chambers beneath the Terran Strategic Silence Division, Class 1 met in a room with no windows. There were 3 of them. They didn't introduce themselves. They didn't need names. They were not siblings by blood but bound by something stronger, intent without instability. A briefing appeared on the wall. A new alliance forming between known aggressor species. One of the three leaned back watching the data scroll. Then whispered, "We drop one more." Another replied, "Class 4. Pause. Then the last, quietest among them, smiled faintly. "No. Let's see what they do with it too." And across the galaxy, a girl with short hair and black fatigues received her next orders. Coordinates. A name. A time. No weapons listed. No backup required. She closed the file. And walked toward a new world that didn't know it had just become part of a very old lesson. When a human drops their blade, time starts ticking. The girl, call her Sarah, stepped off the transport with nothing but a light pack slung across her shoulder and a strange calm in her stride. No weapon. No armor. Not even a datapad. The planet's surface rippled with the humidity of 1,000 jungle moons. Hives of insectoid structures rose like jagged thorns through the skyline. Dozens of mercs, diplomats, and opportunists bustled through the outpost station. None noticed her. They would. Her presence wasn't a broadcast. It was an anomaly. Sensors flickered near her but logged nothing. No threat profile. No diplomatic credentials. No identity trace. She didn't hide her face. She didn't speak. Yet as she entered the first bar, the one controlled by Verne Syndicate operatives, half the patrons went quiet. They didn't know why. They just did. Behind the bar, an Ashektan enforcer leaned toward the local warlord, a heavy-jawed bracker whose tongue had tasted human blood a decade ago. Should we scan her? The bracker studied her posture. Not defensive. Not submissive. Just centered. And something ancient inside his war-born instincts whispered. She isn't prey. She isn't predator. She is outcome. He grunted. No. Just watch. Within 6 hours, the station's underworld went dark. Encrypted transmissions ceased. Smugglers rerouted paths without orders. A notorious slaver ship turned itself into orbital security. The girl hadn't done anything. Except walk. Except exist. And across the galaxy, encrypted Terran channels began to ping with confirmation codes. Silent pings. No text. No audio. Just a signal. A 2 is active. Meanwhile, the Coalition Council met in emergency session. The galactic network buzzed with anomalies. A Class 2 had deployed, unarmed. That meant Earth knew something. Something no other power did. And as the data analysts began to trace the ripples of her appearance, they found something chilling. The station she'd visited? It sat at the convergence point of 3 silent militarized buildups. Sarah had walked into the future site of a war. And now that she was there, that war was no longer guaranteed. They scrambled. Leaders convened. Should we strike first? Should we recall forces? What if this is a test? What if she's not the test? And then came the whisper from a fringe science sect, the Axiomatic Sons, whose surveillance bots had recorded a low-frequency audio hum in the girl's presence. A sound like a heartbeat. But it wasn't hers. It came from the air around her. As if reality itself was bracing. It took 3 days. On the 4th, the Bracker warlord approached Sarah in a dim garden outside the outpost. No guards. No cameras. He sat beside her. Said nothing for a while. Then, "Why are you here?" Sarah didn't look at him. She looked at the stars. And said, "To see if we still need to bleed each other." Pause. Then she added, "Or if someone finally learned." The Bracker's breathing hitched. Something buried under centuries of conquest shifted in him. Not fear. Permission. Permission to change. The next day he issued a public call. All hostilities on the sector border were to cease immediately. No one questioned it. They didn't need to. Sarah was gone by the time the council got the message. No signature. No trace. Just a single data pad left on her bunk in the outpost's guest quarters. One phrase on the screen. 14 seconds is long enough. If you've already decided. Across the galaxy, stories changed. Tales told to children in the markets and on prison ships, to soldiers in cold barracks, to old aliens who'd seen empires fall. They no longer feared humans because of what humans did. They feared them because of what they chose not to do. Back on Earth, the class board lit up. Another promotion logged. Sarah, from Tuke 1. The silence held. Class 0, if it existed, never spoke. But for now humanity didn't need it. The galaxy was listening. And that's why the arena is empty. Not because humans couldn't fight, but because they no longer had to prove they could. So next time you hear that phrase, "She dropped her weapon," understand, you're already inside the countdown. You just haven't heard the clock. If that story pulled you in, if you want more of these silent storms and whispered victories from the edge of humanity's rise, then hit that subscribe button. Because this galaxy's just beginning to learn what a calm human can do. And you're not going to want to miss what comes next. See you in the next one. Void Narratives out.